Welcome to the Disney Wedding Podcast. This show is brought to you by Carrie Hayward's Fairytale Weddings Guide, the only guidebook and bridal organizer tailored exclusively to Disney's fairytale weddings at Walt Disney World. I'm Carrie Hayward, and each week I feature Disney wedding updates, money-saving tips, and interviews with wedding vendors and real Disney couples. I also cover honeymoons, anniversaries, and engagements at the Disney parks and resorts. Join me now as the Disney Wedding Podcast celebrates romance at Disney destinations. Today on the Disney Wedding Podcast, I am speaking with Disney bride Libby Williamson about her ceremony at the Wedding Pavilion with a reception at St. Augustine A and B at the Grand Floridian Convention Center. I thought you guys would be interested to hear how she chose these locations and how she planned everything and how it all turned out. So welcome, Libby.
Hi, how you doing today?
I am awesome. Thanks so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, no problem.
I would love to start at the very beginning and find out how you and your fiancé decided that you wanted to have your wedding at Disney.
You know, it's honestly hard to say what started it all. We actually kind of talked about it as a joke at first. There's a video I have where we kind of knew that we were heading towards, getting married, and we did like this prank video where I'm basically saying, hey, tell the people that we're going to get married at Disney, and he's like, this is under duress. We're not going to get married at Disney. And we just kind of laughed about it. But then morbid curiosity kind of turned into more of a hypothetical question, and like looking at the groups, the pictures, watching the TV show on Disney Plus. And then I purchased your guide, and I was like, looking at the actual pricing and the experiences, and it's not as unattainable as people think it is. And then we really started crunching the numbers, and more than likely our wedding ended up being cheaper doing it at Disney with all the entertainment perks and the food and, all the other stuff versus doing it here at home, which, we live in Atlanta, so there's a hefty price tag on everything wedding up here.
Definitely. That's awesome. So then how did your friends and family react when they found out where the wedding was going to be?
Honestly, it was a bit mixed. Wasn't really what I was expecting. Most of our friends were excited, except one of our friends was just like, why are you making Emory pay for a Disney wedding? Aren't they like $100,000? And, that's where the education part and your guide kind of comes in. And it's just like, well, yes, they can be up to 100,000, but they don't start there. As far as my family, there were some concerns about, the travel and it being a destination wedding, lodging, and it was in the middle of spring break, and it was on a Tuesday, and it was in the morning. So, there were some non-traditional things we kind of put in there that caused some concerns. But now when I talk to everyone, they're just like, that was one of the best weddings we've ever gone to. Like, we had so much fun. So, yeah, it was mixed at first, but everyone had a great time.
That's fantastic. How many guests did you invite, and how many were able to make the trip?
Everyone has guest lists A, B, and C. So we capped it at 33, and then plus us would be 35. And then we kind of garnered some responses with the Save the Day and, the RSVP. And that kind of brought it down to 25 to 27, including us. The day of, 24 attended. That was great. It was so good.
That's wonderful. Now, did you set up a room block for your guests?
We did, and I read and reread that section in the book, and Janet was our room block coordinator, and she explained it beautifully. She explained it to me like I was 5, and I still couldn't tell you how everything came together because it's all kind of a blur. So what we did at first, working with Janet, we set our minimum super low at 16 nights at Pop Century, Port Orleans, Riverside, and the Grand Floridian. All resorts that we've stayed in before in previous Disney trips, all resorts that we really, really like. A lot of the amenities and the distance to the parks. We figured Pop, especially being the value resort, would be really good for guests coming in. And if people wanted to kind of splurge on the Grand and kind of be in the center of all 3 of the events, then they definitely could. But most of our guests did end up staying at Port Orleans, Riverside, and, everyone kind of had a good time and was still kind of together.
Got it. Okay. How did you guys choose the day of the week and time of day for your event?
So top pick was March 10th, a Friday. March 10th is Mario Day, and we're both, gamers, so we thought that would be kind of cool. I even had Mario and Peach wedding figurines that'd be cute to put on top of the cake, but we got our second pick, which was March 14th, which was even better. It was more cost effective because it was on a Tuesday and it's actually our dating anniversary. So we got married on our 4-year anniversary. So less dates to remember and still a very, memorable day. But no matter what day it was, we always knew that we wanted a morning wedding. And looking back at the pictures we took, very early in the morning and everyone getting ready, it was definitely worth it for sure.
How did you choose your ceremony and reception venues?
We did one of the open house tours during one of our trips, and we just so happened to come on an open weekend. We had no idea until I think it was someone in the Disbride group said, "Hey, if you're here, go run by the wedding pavilion, just take a look." And you see it in pictures, but nothing really compares to seeing the venue in person. The inside of the wedding pavilion, picture point, it's breathtaking. I think I started crying as we went out to Picture Point, and I said, okay, this absolutely has to be the place. I mean, it was, even with no decor whatsoever, it's still an amazing place to have your wedding for sure. As far as the reception and the cocktail hour, I had read a couple of stories about some transportation issues trying to get from one venue to the other for, the latter half of the wedding, as well as like if you're going to do a reception in a park, you have to do stuff with security and all that. So, I mean, when I talked it over with Emory, I was like, I mean, do you think it'd be kind of tacky to keep everything in one place? But turns out a lot of our guests, especially our guests that were elderly and or may have had mobility issues, really appreciated having everything be so close together. And I think around that time, they started doing the Roman characters for the 50th. And so my parents actually ran into Goofy and Donald as they were leaving the ceremony, walking to the cocktail hour. So, I mean, that was super fun. So definitely a plus that we, decided to keep it in one section. It was great.
Got it. Okay. Did you use any outside vendors for the portions of your event that you were able to?
Oh, yes. Other than I guess she wasn't really a day of coordinator, more of like our go-to person from Disney, just trying to keep everything running together. Almost all my vendors were outside. So we had Captured by Elle for our photography and videography. Our DJ was DJ Chuck. We used Martell Event Services for my dress steaming and the decor setup. And then two interesting things that we did that were a little bit different that I just happened to bump into basically talking with other brides as well as just looking around in the Orlando area. We actually added in live streaming for just the ceremony because we had a guest list that was longer than 35 people. And, we felt bad we couldn't accommodate, everybody. And, we were just having people not being able to make it to a destination wedding. We kind of used the live streaming as a middle ground so people could watch the ceremony. And that was through Oh Marvelous Productions, and they gave us a copy of the wedding video. I mean, it was great. Every piece of it was just amazing. And then, of course, hair and makeup was through Supreme Makeup and Hair Designs. I feel like finding them was like finding a unicorn for my hair and makeup, because I feel like the search for makeup and hair vendors was probably one of the more stressful things when trying to look for vendors because, I have textured hair and, it can be very particular. And sometimes I get frustrated with it and I just wear a bandana. So, when I want to go somewhere and, obviously for a wedding, you can't do that. But the thing I was running into was some vendors didn't really know how to work with textured hair, or they said they knew how to do it. And I just wasn't seeing that reflected in the gallery. And of course, you also want someone who has experience with Disney weddings in particular. So finding that trifecta was just a bit, oh gosh. Yeah, but I did speak to a couple of other brides that also have textured hair, and they recommended Supreme Makeup and Hair Design. And just after the trial, I knew I'd made the right choice in booking with them. I mean, she did awesome. And I am not really a makeup person. I did warn her that I have not had my makeup done professionally since prom. So I probably was not the most helpful customer when it comes to like sitting still and just letting the makeup happen. I struggled a lot with getting eyeliner, but she was really patient with me and worked with me, and everything turned out fantastic. So she was probably the favorite vendor that I worked with the entire day.
That's awesome. How did you guys choose your officiant?
Everything about Catherine Imundi, everything I read about her, everything, I could just tell that she was just an absolute hoot to work with. And I'm so happy we were right. If you took the fairy godmother out of Cinderella, like she is it. She is it. So the ceremony that she wrote for us was just, it's like she knew us for years and years. I mean, obviously I know she talked with us beforehand, but I mean, it was creative, but also very touching, very heartfelt. And then one of the best things that she did was she joked during the rehearsal that, okay, you're going to do this. And, I now pronounce you husband and wife, and faith, trust, and pixie dust. And then she's like, and then I'll sprinkle pixie dust on you. And I thought she was joking. And the day of, she actually pulls out like pixie dust out of her pocket and sprinkles it over me and Emory. And everyone was talking about, oh my God, your hair just sparkled the entire rest of the day. So if there's anyone that's a magic maker, I mean, she is truly it, down to the Unity ceremony that we did with her, which was up-themed, and we still have the mailbox. I can't say enough good things about her. She was fantastic.
That's cool. What did you do with the mailbox for your Unity ceremony?
Our entire wedding was up-themed. So she had this idea where she would get a mailbox and then she would design it just like Carl and Ellie's mailbox from the movie. And beforehand, we were told to write letters to each other that we would open on our first anniversary. And so during the Unity ceremony, I had in our BEO to play a soft and slow version of Married Life. And she said a few words and everything. And then we would take the letters and we put the mailbox in and we both closed the lid. And then we both got to lift the flag on the mailbox. And we had some people say like, okay, that's the moment I started crying. I mean, it was beautiful. And, we had that displayed on our bookshelf loud and proud. So definitely a highlight of the ceremony for sure. And our pinky promise. She also added in the pinky promise. That was sweet.
That's wonderful. Did you add any kind of entertainment to the ceremony or to the reception?
I can't remember exactly when it was in the planning process. We kind of at first wanted to go with Mickey and Minnie, but then because at the time I was actually working with Disney programs and Emory was back in our hometown working. So we were actually separated for the duration of a lot of our wedding planning. And because he was dealing with me being like all stressed out and like trying to plan this thing and, being really helpful, I reached out to our planner and just said, hey, just figured I'd ask, are we able to have Stitch come to the wedding? Because Stitch is my husband's favorite Disney character of all time. And that was probably one of the hardest secrets I've ever had to keep throughout the whole thing. I mean, I was just giddy and like planning for it in the background. But then they said that Stitch is kind of a different character where he has to have a backdrop and stay on the backdrop. So he can't dance and he can't do cake cutting and that sort of thing. So later I asked our planner, I'm like, well, in that case, can we add Mickey? Just for the guests to be able to dance and do the cake cutting. And she said, sure. So we had Mickey show up first and nobody knew about Mickey except me and Emory. And then when Mickey left, everyone knew about Stitch except for Emory. So it was a surprise on all ends. So I just love the character so much. And we knew we definitely had to have at least one at the reception.
That's fantastic. For the reception, do you have any menu items or cake flavors that you would recommend?
Oh, yeah. So looking at the list, I remember seeing lavender and I was like, lavender? I didn't even know that could be anything other than a scent or a crayon color. But I think we had an instant hit with lavender and the blueberry lemon curd filling. I mean, it was kind of surreal, like how well they went together. And it seems like so random. We were actually kind of stumped on some of the other flavors because, I mean, we're from the South. So, I mean, we eat red velvet cake with cream cheese filling every holiday we get a chance. And my personal favorite is yellow cake with chocolate icing. It's an oldie but a goodie. We did also like the French toast, but we kind of figured, it's Disney. You kind of go here to try different food. And we were thinking about kind of just going with the safe option of the red velvet, but it's like, it's a Disney wedding. We're already doing things a little bit differently. So let's just go ahead with the lavender, blueberry, lemon curd. Everyone loved it. And we also had a bunch of cake left over. We only had 2 tiers. I remember I just started a new job earlier in that month and I brought back all the extra cake and I was like the favorite coworker that month because they absolutely loved the cake. And we did an anniversary cake and it tasted just as good as it did on the day of our wedding. I mean, lavender and blueberry lemon curd is absolute top tier. For the brunch, we stuck with the default menu for a lot of the buffet, but I told the chef that I love the chicken and waffle plate from the Grand Floridian Cafe. So he did add chicken thighs and hot honey drizzle to put alongside the Mickey waffles, and that tasted just as good as I thought it would. And the last thing I added since we got married on Pi Day, I like the Appleseed Orchard booth at Epcot's Food and Wine Festival. So I asked the chef, like, hey, can we also add some of those little mini apple pies? Or I think they're like crumble tarts or whatever it was. Probably sugar upon sugar upon sugar with the cake and everything. But yeah, it was a great little joke for the guests. So, but yeah, menu was good. Brunch was good. We had pog with everything. The make your own omelet bar was probably one of my favorite things. So yeah, can't go wrong with the brunch buffet.
Fantastic. Did you guys add any other events around your day, like a dessert party or a welcome party?
We didn't do a dessert party, and I remember I was reading about the afternoon tea that Disney used to offer. I think at the time it wasn't available, and the pricing also was a little out of budget. So I did still want to do a welcome party, but it was getting kind of difficult to plan with both Emory's side of the family and my side of the family and our whole wedding party. So we actually did two separate things. He went with his side of the family to Whispering Canyon for like their welcome party. And I went with a spot called Infusion Tea in Orlando. They actually offer a bridal slash bachelorette shower brunch tea party. It was about $360 for 10 guests, and I can't say more good things about it. It was a 2-hour celebration of bottomless tea, a fruit and cheese platter, soup and salad, and little desserts like macarons and cupcakes and truffles and a little champagne toast. I mean, it was great. And I don't plan on going to a wedding anytime soon, but I would definitely go back to have a celebration at Infusion Tea just because it was so cute and the decor was nice and everyone just had a really good time. Service was amazing. But yeah, definitely a really good welcome party. It was great.
That's a great tip. Can you give my listeners a timeline of how the wedding day all fit together?
Sure. I woke up around 5 a.m., but hair and makeup didn't get there until 5:45. Me and my bridesmaids we just used the Grand Floridian room to get ready. Photography and videography came around 7:30 until about 8 to take getting ready pictures for me and the girls in the room. And the groomsmen and Emory for one night stayed at Port Orleans Riverside. So they actually came over to the Grand Floridian to take sort of staged getting ready photos in the lobby. So they went down to see them around 8:30. And by the time, we got the all call from our day of coordinator from Disney to come down around 9 and, take some pictures in the lobby before going to the convention center to be picked up in Cinderella's coach. Did the ceremony around 9:30 and then took some pictures. And then we ended up going around to the convention center to do the cocktail hour at 10:40, which I guess was a bit swift because we didn't have a stage exit. But then we went into our room at the convention center and met with our DJ for a little bit before making our way to the reception area around like 11:30, 11:45. So at that point, first dances, food and everything. And then Mickey came around like 1:15, and I mean, everybody just kind of went nuts. Danced with us and did cake cutting. And once Mickey left, Stitch popped in around 2 and stayed until 2:30. So everyone went up and took pictures with him, and we kind of danced with him around the backdrop. We did one more song, and the reception ended at 3:30, and everyone was happy and full. And Probably my second best part of the day was taking a nap at 4 and not waking up until midnight. We actually missed dinner. So definitely long day, happy day, and a very sleepy day afterwards.
So, out of all of this, what ended up being your favorite memory of your wedding day?
Riding in the carriage to the convention center, we'd been up since 5 and all the, rush, 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 go, go, go. And when they ushered us into this room to have like some of the cocktail hour eats, it was just me and Emory, like in this big empty room. And it was kind of crazy because you close the door. Well, you can hear all the craziness outside, and you close the door and it's instantly silent. So that had been the first moment where we kind of like had a moment to look at each other and just see, oh, hey, you actually, you cleaned up nice. Like you look really nice. How was your morning? How was your, did everything go okay? And just letting everything sink in, have something to eat before having to go right back outside and do the rest of the wedding. So I still look back fondly on it. It was kind of the calm before the happy storm, so to speak, but it was a good reset in that moment.
Wonderful. So, when you guys were planning, what were some of the most important aspects of the event where you focused your attention or your budget?
Top definitely was the photography and the videography. My background is actually in film, so while I love pictures, if I can capture something on video, I mean, I'll hold on to it forever. So finding not only a photographer and videographer that was within budget, but also had very high quality pictures and good work, like I said, captured by Elle, nailed every single one of those aspects. And again, with the turnaround time, I mean, I think we got our pictures back in April. We got about 835 pictures, and then I think the video was maybe a month later, which was like mind blown how quick we got everything back and how good it looked. I mean, for good quality work. So definitely, worth the money there. The other aspects, I guess, kind of go hand in hand. Since our wedding was up themed, I really had a focus in DIY decor by incorporating a lot of those things from the movie. So my husband and I spent a lot of time, I mean, literally like drawing it out, like the centerpieces and the decor for the ceremony, which Catherine helped a lot with the mailbox, but, getting wilderness explorer pins for the groomsmen and having the grape soda pen for Emory and for having the little jugs with, I think I filled them with Orbeez to kind of look like balloons. And then we had like a little paper that said Paradise Falls on the front. And a lot of it was stuff that we could do ourselves. But I mean, it still took quite a bit of money to kind of get all of that stuff together. But it turned out perfect, exactly how we needed it. And then lastly, like the food and the cake, particularly, I had a very clear vision of what I wanted the cake to look like. Going along with the up theme, we had Mickey balloons going up the cake. And it was a very simple design, but it was very intentional what we wanted it to represent and look like, down to the toppers with Carl and Ellie. And with those three things, I mean, just looking back at the photos and everything, I mean, it just the way it came together was fantastic.
That's so great to hear. Were there any aspects that were less important where you saved your money or just your effort?
Definitely floral. I don't even remember how much my bouquet was, but my bouquet had a total of 4 roses and a lot of eucalyptus leaves. My floral BEO was probably around 500. I mean, if that. We had one plant in the middle at the altar in the middle, and it was in the perfect color. I wasn't picky about the type of flowers. My thing was, do you have peachy and white type of roses, and that would look a bit more lush, so to speak, and more greenery. And it worked out perfectly because our Disney Day of coordinator was able to get that moved over to the reception where we put it on the sweetheart table. Because we had a memorial table set up, she moved that stuff over. But yes, now remember, we did pay in the floral BEO to have that transferred over to the reception. The boys had boutonnieres, like single roses, and my girls, I was able to put together their bouquets from I can't remember if it was Hobby Lobby or something, but I mean, in the pictures, they're the right color and everything. Those turned out great. And then, of course, for the two other aspects, we kind of went back and forth about drinks in the brunch. We were kind of like, do we add a mimosa bar or anything? But because what came with it in the morning, the tea, water, hog, and coffee. And then I believe we also added the Martinelli sparkling cider was great. We didn't have any alcohol at all. It wasn't really important to have it, but we did want a toast, so we just used the sparkling cider and saved a lot there. And then, of course, we didn't want a big wedding anyway with a lot of guests. So having that guest list kind of already narrowed down meant that we could kind of go bigger in some other areas with the entertainment and stuff for the guests that were able to make it. And, focusing it more on like photography and videography and that sort of thing.
I see. Okay. Now, did anything go wrong or just not turn out like you expected?
It's funny you mentioned that because during my favorite moment of the whole wedding day, where we were in the little room in the convention center, that's when my husband does this a lot. He'll, so by the way, just wanted to let you know, apparently there was a bit of a mix up with the place that the boys had rented their tuxes from. Both my husband and his brother, their names start with the same letter and they both have the same last name. So I think that they got the sizing mixed up between the two, but there was also an issue where one of the tuxes, I think that was my brother-in-law's, they put the wrong date for pickup. So they said, okay, well, no one came to pick it up. So they shipped the tux back. And when they got it back, it was like, okay, everything's hunky dory now. Because I remember like a couple days before the wedding, we were trying to get that scrambled and worked out because his tux wasn't there. And so they had to figure that out. And then come to find out, they actually sent off the wrong tux. So it was a twofold issue because my husband went to go put on his tux and realized it didn't fit. So they accidentally swapped the names on the measurements. And thus, instead of my brother in law's tux getting shipped back because the date was wrong on that one, they actually shipped off the groom's tux.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was, thankfully, my father in law came to, save the day because he had on, I kind of said, if you can wear something navy and peach, like with the wedding colors, feel free, but it's not mandatory at all. And my father in law had a navy jacket that he let Emory have. And to this day, you can't tell the difference, that it wasn't from that place. But he was telling me all this, and I was like, yeah, it's a good thing you didn't let me know that this morning because I wouldn't know how to handle it. But he's like, yeah, I didn't tell you because we took care of it. And I said, well, I appreciate that. Thank you. We didn't really address it, but I think my bridesmaids got different dresses, different color dresses from the ones that we picked out. But that ended up working out because it made my maid of honor stand out because there was a bit of a lighter color there. So that was fine. And I guess this is more of a funny thing or something I can kind of laugh about. One of the horses, when I was in the carriage in the wedding video, was using the bathroom. So that's like in our wedding video forever. But I mean, it's blurred out and everything. But I told Emory about it. He's like, "Oh yeah, I noticed that on the first watch through." Okay.
Okay, so then was there anything that seemed like a big deal beforehand or you were worried about and then it turned out not to be a big deal?
Weather. I mean, I feel like that's with any event you're having in Florida, which is why we did prioritize having an indoor venue for the ceremony, but it was always kind of, spring showers and everything. It was perfect weather. I mean, even down to the temperature was absolutely perfect. The room block, which again did end up working out, but just there was talk of some family that told me that they were going to use the room block, but then I heard through the grapevine that they wanted to do an Airbnb and they accounted for probably about half of our nights in the room block. So I had to kind of like intervene and talk about the room block. And, that ended up working out just fine. And then I guess family getting lost or like not being able to get to the venue on time. But I mean, everyone was on top of it because I know with us having a morning wedding, some of the concerns were, I don't want to get up at so and so and, in the morning and, but everybody that wanted to be there, which was all the guests that we invited did show up in the right spot at the right time. So there was absolutely nothing to worry about.
That's great. Do you have any other tips or advice for future Disney couples?
One piece of feedback that I got quite often, because I was also communicating in, the Disney Brides group and everything, I got so many BEOs in such a little time, and each BEO didn't need a whole lot of corrections. I can't pinpoint exactly why, considering that day I was one of 3 people that got married at the exact same venue on that day. And funny enough, Catherine actually officiated all 3. So that was definitely a busy day. So we're all like wedding date triplets. And I was communicating with one of the other couples, and, they were like, how are you getting so many BEOs like that quickly? And the one thing our planner said, the thing that helped her was to keep every single thing that we requested in one email chain. There might be multiple people communicating, like her assistant planner and everything, but just to keep it in one chain. And I mean, everything turned out fine. As far as the actual BEOs themselves, very little corrections each time. But if there were corrections, I would print them out, mark them up with pen and highlighter where corrections were needed, and then would scan, all the pages back as attachments in the email, and then still outline each correction and the corresponding page in a list in the actual email. Again, I'm not quite sure what part was the thing that really did it, but I mean, our first BEO happened right after the end of our planning session, like the same day. So, I mean, our planner was on it through and through until, like, the day of the wedding. And on that note, with the planning, we actually scrapped our planning kit, because by the time we had our planning session, I would tell other brides that stuff changes quite a bit. Like, your taste may change, your budget may change. So if you have to just scrap everything and start fresh, our planner was totally okay with that. And we started anew, and it helped make things a lot less confusing versus like, oh, but you wanted this, but you want to do this now, just scrap it all, just start fresh. Also, don't be afraid to request things that may or may not be offered. Even though Disney doesn't say that they do it, doesn't mean they necessarily won't do it, which is why I kind of asked about Stitch. But, I was okay if we couldn't do it. But the fact that they're like, oh, yeah, let's talk to entertainment, and they approved it, was like, oh, okay, well, that's Disney magic. We can do that. Even like some odd things, very specific things. I actually walked down the aisle to an instrumental version of, it's kind of an inside joke between my husband and I, but heavy metal song, but it was played on the organ, so nobody would have known. And in the BEO, I specified the timestamp as well as, to play it slowly. If it's not on the BEO, it's not going to happen. So they absolutely did everything to a T. So if you want specifics, don't be afraid to request it. If pricing looks off, ask about it. We thought maybe the DJ, just in an opinion, was a little too high, and turns out we were being overcharged for it. So they did fix the pricing. And then if you're thinking about Cinderella's coach and you can swing it in your budget, just do it. Just do it. There's nothing more magical. I mean, kids were looking like they were seeing an actual princess and prince in the coach. I mean, it was fantastic. And even Emory had to kind of admit, I kind of nudged him on the way to the convention center. I was like, this is pretty cool, right? See? Like, it was worth the splurge. And finally, definitely read the guide and read it again and again. I mean, I can't think of a better resource for kind of getting in the know with Disney weddings than the Fairytale Wedding Guide, for sure. I don't see how, I mean, again, you don't know what Disney offers unless you kind of know what to ask, and, don't be afraid to ask if it's not in there, and the guide has it all. That's all I can say. The guide has it all.
That's great. I'm so glad you found it helpful. Well, Libby, I think you've offered a lot of great tips and advice for anyone who's interested in getting married or having a vow renewal at Walt Disney World, and I appreciate your taking the time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
That's our show for today. I'm your host, Carrie Hayward, inviting you to join me again next week for another episode of the Disney Wedding Podcast. Past shows and tons of photos for each episode are available on my website, DisneyWeddingPodcast.com, or listen in your favorite podcast app. And for instant answers to all your Walt Disney World wedding questions, check out Carrie Hayward's Fairytale Weddings Guide, available as an interactive ebook with continual free updates at fairytaleweddingsguide.com.